Hey, what's going on? This is a response video to Fake Sagan's response video. But I just wanted to say something because I tend to agree with your granddad about, you know, ideas not being in and of themselves dangerous. But having said that, any idea can potentially be dangerous. I was thinking of a good way to express this, and invariably, when I'm trying to make a point, I find someone else who's made it better than me. I've had this book lying around for years. I read it years ago, Still Life with Woodpecker by Tom Robbins. I don't know if you ever read any Tom Robbins. And it's one of those books I read years ago and really enjoyed, and I found it recently and thought, why did I save that book? Like, why did I think it was that good? I mean, it was a good book, but like, so I started reading through it, and I found this passage, and it really reminded me of, it seemed pertinent. We'll see what you think. Now, the line that separates objects from ideas can be pretty twiggy, but let's not unzip that pair of pants. Galileo was right to drop objects rather than ideas off his tower, and the Carafest might have been wise to stick with objects as well. Within the normal range of perception, the behavior of objects can be measured and predicted. Ignoring the possibility that in the wrong hands, almost any object, including this book you hold, can turn up as Exhibit A in a murder trial. Ignoring for the moment the far more interesting possibility that every object might lead a secret life, it is still safe to say that objects as we understand them are relatively stable, whereas ideas are definitely unstable. They not only can be misused, they invite misuse, and the better the idea, the more volatile it is. That's because only the better ideas turn into dogma. And it is this process whereby a fresh, stimulating, humanely helpful idea is changed into robot dogma that is deadly. In terms of hazardous vectors released, the transformation of ideas into dogma rivals the transformation of hydrogen into helium, uranium into lead, or innocence into corruption, and it is nearly as relentless. The problem starts at the secondary level, not with the originator or developer of the idea, but with the people who are attracted by it, who adopt it, who cling to it until their last nail breaks, and who invariably lack the overview, flexibility, imagination, and most importantly, sense of humor to maintain it in the spirit in which it was hatched. Ideas are made by masters, dogma by disciples, and the Buddha is always killed on the road. There's a particularly unattractive and discouragingly common affliction called tunnel vision, which for all the misery it causes ought to top the job list at the World Health Organization. Tunnel vision is a disease in which perception is restricted by ignorance and distorted by vested interest. Tunnel vision is caused by an optic fungus that multiplies when the brain is less energetic than the ego. It is complicated by exposure to politics. When a good idea is run through the filters and compressors of ordinary tunnel vision, it not only comes out reduced in scale and value, but its new dogmatic configuration produces effects the opposite of those for which it originally was intended. Yeah. Sound familiar? That is how the loving ideas of Jesus Christ became the sinister cliches of Christianity. That is why virtually every revolution in history has failed. The oppressed, as soon as they seize power, turn into the oppressors, resorting to totalitarian tactics to protect the revolution. That is why minorities seeking the abolition of prejudice become intolerant. Minorities seeking peace become militant. Minorities seeking equality become self-righteous. Minorities seeking liberation become hostile. A tight asshole being the first symptom of self-repression. So, yeah. Yeah, it made me think of that little passage in this book. And who to thunk it too, you know, Tom Robbins. But you know, I take it where I can get it, man. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think structure has a lot to do with it as well, as far as like, you know, social organizations, generally speaking, are structured on the pyramid model, the top-down model, and you know, it's a sort of model that, you know, as far as organization, that kind of lends itself to tyranny. You know, no matter how benevolent the dictator who's in power now, you don't know who's going to come after him. So the idea of spreading that power around, you know, I mean, that was one of the things of the founders when they envisioned this government of checks and balances, and really John Adams was one of the people that was most behind pushing that idea, because, you know, he knew that people weren't that trustworthy. It's like you can't trust them, you know, if they don't know that somebody else is looking at them. You know, it's their job to make sure, you know, balance powers. But, you know, once again, any idea, you know, and the best ones are the most in danger and they have to be guarded. But, you know, that's all I got to say anyway.